All right.
It shouldn't go out.
Welcome, everyone. What a big crowd. We're hoping it'll warm it up in here just a little bit with all of us in here. And welcome to the November 14th, 2023 Special City Council meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members are present. We have Councilmember White online if you'd like to say hello.
Hello.
And then we also have Councilmember Lopez, who is absent and excused this evening. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Ritchie.
Thank you. Please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. This evening, we're so pleased to welcome Fernando Morales, the Vice Chair of our Diversity Commission, and Linda Lartigue, the Diversity Affairs Coordinator. Oh, Fernando, come on up yourself. And Linda's back there. Hi, Linda. Okay. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you. Members of the council, Ms. Mara Brown and staff members. My name is Fernando Morales. I'm the Vice Chair of the Diversity Commission, and it's a pleasure to serve the community. In honor of National Homeless Youth Awareness Month and Native American Heritage Month, I would like to present two fantastic local organizations that are making a difference here in Ogden City for the council to recognize publicly today. First one is Youth Futures. Youth Future provides safe shelter, collaborative resources, respectful guidance, and diverse support to homeless, unaccompanied youth, runaway, and a youth risk in Utah. Youth Future has been in Ogden serving our youth since 2015. Some of their services include emergency overnight shelter, street outreach, transportation, 24/7 crisis support, suicide and healthcare assessments, comprehensive case management, and they provide basic needs such as food, water, hygiene products to youth in need in our community. This is just a few of the services they do and the work they provide. We are grateful for their kindness and their caring work that they do for the young people in our city.
Oh, yes, we are. Thank you.
I want to thank you so much.
You can come on up here and we'll shake your hands and we'll take a photo and then we'll ask you to speak. You can start over there if you'd like to. Thank you.
And then all the way down. Thank you so much. I don't know who's more remote, me or Marcia.
Anyone else like to join you for the photo? Come on up.
Maybe Linda.
Linda.
Oh, Linda, do you want to come up too? She thought she was off the stage tonight. Thank you.
I guess he wants me to say something. I just want to thank you all for first of all, for welcoming us in Ogden and for supporting everything that we do. We serve over 850 kids a year now in the entire state of Utah, so Ogden was our start. And because we had such great support here and found so many kids in need, we've also moved to Cedar City and St. George. So thank you all. Any questions anyone has for me?
Is there any special way that people could help support the organization or the kids for the holidays?
Absolutely. We have a lot of kids coming through our doors, both overnight shelter kids and drop-in kids. So we take presents. We would love to have funds that will help us support kids for Christmas. We do lots of volunteer activities for meals for the kids over Thanksgiving and Christmas. So
And don't you have a special event coming up, like a sleeping outside event?
we slept out this last weekend.
Oh, I missed it. Okay.
We had almost 150 people that came and slept out with us overnight so that kids don't have to. So we raise money. Homeless Youth Awareness Month is this entire month, so you can donate all through the month for our sleep out. So
Thanks so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second organization is the Weber State University Native American Student Association. The Native American Student Association, or NASA, is a student club that organizes activities and events that educate towards Native American cultures, creating an engagement and inclusivity for all Native and non-Native students to join. The NSAA hosts the Indigenous Voices Pow Pow, Native American Heritage Month activities, Native Symposium, and the Native American Graduation Celebration and College Prep 9. NSAA aims to bring cultural resources to Weber State University and our community in general. And for that, we want to recognize them as well with the council.
Awesome. Thank you. Where are they? Come on up. Come on up. You can shake our hands if you'd like to, and then we'll get a photo.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Stay here, we'll take a picture.
Nice baby.
Yeah. Not yet. Y'all just scoot a little bit this way. So I can have you all in the same frame. That works too. Okay. All right, let's do this one first. Okay. Okay, you can set this right here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so if anybody would like to step up there to make a statement, you can, or you can all introduce yourself if you'd like to as well.
Shikwe and me shapo tunki Keely Bryn in mi tuta iwa Chalaihat. Hello, good day. My name is Keely Bryn. I am a Yakima native, first descendant from Lambrin Chalaihat. I'm a senior here at Weber State University, and I am the vice president of the Native American Student Association. I first want to begin by wholeheartedly thanking Ogden City for this acknowledgement. We're excited to continue our programming that supports Native and Indigenous communities in Ogden City. This month, we've already had the pleasure of hosting a sunrise blessing ceremony on the 1st, a keynote presentation with Darren Perry, a Native weaving workshop, and today we hosted a mental health workshop in collaboration with Urban Indian Wellness. Further, our final symposium event this month will be a film screening called Native Way Forward on November 15th at 4:30, and it is free and open to the public at Weber State Wildcat Theater. We are thankful to our administration at Weber State University and their continued support. This space allows us to promote and support Indigenous voices, not only in higher education, but also in our city's community. It's through this work that we find support to advocate change throughout our community. And it must be recognized that while there's a lot of work to be done supporting Indigenous lives, it is these types of opportunities that create that change. Lastly, we would also like to thank the Native American Cultural Center Program Manager and Advisor, Amanda Jones, for her support, as it's nothing short of admirable, and she works tirelessly for us and for her community.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's Ashika Doshidana Asha Amanda Jones in Asia. Tapaha Nishle, Kitachini Bashishin, but Anita Shache, Do Tlash Dashanali, Akotana Azani Nishle. Hello, my name is Amanda Jones. I am the program manager for our Native American Cultural Center here at Weber State University. I just want to start off by saying thank you to Ogden City, the Ogden City Council, and of course to Ogden City Arts Grant, because it is through that grant that we are also able to host our Indigenous Voices powwow. So we're excited to be hosting that again this year. I just want to say thank you to Weber State in general for always supporting us, President Mortensen, and the Centers for Belonging and Cultural Engagement Director Brandon Flores for the continued support that they have given us throughout these past few years. We also look forward, like I mentioned, to our Indigenous Voices powwow. We hope that you all are able to attend, as it is a great event that we have many dancers, many individuals and vendors coming in from different areas to come to our campus. So again, this is going to be a free event, so please, if you have the opportunity to, join us during that time. It'll be March 30th and an all-day event. Thank you.
What language was that one that you spoke?
Navajo.
Navajo.
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.
And also, I do have my students over here. I have Coriana Yo. She is our president of the Native American Student Association. And I also have Tony Nakai, who is also my student worker for the Cultural Center. So, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Council, for helping us support these organizations and supporting the work of the Commission.
Well, thank
Have
you.
a wonderful night, and now have to figure out where they give you those cool jackets you have on.
I think you'll be able to get one at the corner, I bet. I don't know when they'll be available, but I bet you can get one there. Great. Awesome. Well, we have such a wonderful evening tonight because we also get to have a recognition of our honorary mayor of Christmas Village, and Monte Stewart, our parks manager, will help to present that.
Actually, I think somebody's going to read the proclamation first.
So I'm so sorry, Councilmember Blair. That wasn't in my notes. I apologize.
No worries. Yeah, it's an honor for me to be able to present this to Dan Hoover. I've known Dan for many years, and actually members of his family too. So this is exciting. It reads, declaring November 25th, 2023 as Dan Hoover Day in Ogden City. Whereas Dan Hoover was born and raised in Elkins, West Virginia, and spent his early years in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, until he was 13 years old. For the past 3 decades, he has proudly called Utah his home. Dan was raised by a single mother, is one of 10 children, and alongside his wife, Laura, is the proud father of 5 children. And whereas Dan began his professional career with Swire Coca-Cola in Ogden in 2002 as a merchandiser. Over the course of 21 years, he has ascended through various roles within the company and is currently the district sales manager in Ogden. His work ethic and unwavering dedication exemplify his commitment to the company's growth and success. And whereas Dan's commitment to serve and help others is inspiring. He served a 2-year mission for his church in West Virginia and generously spent a decade coaching youth tackle football. This past year, Dan volunteered with Swire Coca-Cola and the Ogden Swire team at the Operation Homefront event hosted by Kent's Market, which provided groceries and nourishment to more than 400 military families from Hill Air Force Base. And whereas Dan holds a special place in his heart for Ogden's Christmas Village, each year he and his family continue the cherished tradition of enjoying hot cocoa and marveling at the display of lights. It brings him joy to see families coming together, making memories, and embracing the true essence of the Christmas spirit. And whereas we are grateful for the opportunity to highlight Dan's contributions and service in Ogden City. He embodies the Ogden spirit, and his contributions to our community are invaluable. His dedication and influence will continue to help shape our city. Now, therefore, Mayor Michael P. Caldwell and the Ogden City Council do hereby proclaim November 25th, 2023 as Dan Hoover Day in Ogden City and declare him the honorary mayor of Christmas Village for 2023. We express our sincere gratitude for his contributions to our community and encourage everyone to join us and Dan by visiting and enjoying Ogden's Christmas Village this year. And with that, I will make a motion that we adopt this joint proclamation and declare November 25th, 2023 as Dan Hoover Day in Ogden City.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, a second by Vice Chair Ritchie to adopt the joint proclamation. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, thank you, Councilmember White. And that passes. Congratulations.
I still can't be first.
Well, either way, whichever way I'd like to go.
Had I known. Not much. What's up? Congratulations.
You should
like
have your
it.
family come up.
Sing
and
that
picture.
again.
Yeah, please. Let me show you. Here's his
Clean
village
right
up
now.
after.
Oh, damn. Yeah. Big bunny ears. How long did the whole get up? Bring your whole family up, yeah.
Yeah, everybody come on up.
We can take multiple pictures. We can do. It's your night.
And then we'll do the committee after this. too.
You're the mayor, you call
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
That's right. Scoot this way. Yep, there we go.
That's great. Yes. Okay, I think we're good.
should we get one with the committee now before, yeah. If you want to stay up here with the committee, you can.
Yep.
Come on up, committee
No,
members.
they'll all come join you.
Come on up, committee members.
Nice, aren't they?
Yeah, so warm,
Great.
so warm, yeah.
First time ever.
I was gonna wear my red one today just to stick out, but
You know, I was gonna wear my gray one. And you would have stuck.
I woulda.
Is the gray the oldest one?
Yeah, you woulda.
My daughter steals it every year.
You might wanna do 2 rows, talls in the back, shorts in the front.
They went down the
Oh.
wire, you know how they stand
Yeah,
slanted?
that'll make for a nice picture. Oh,
Squeeze in,
great.
act like you like each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, bring some more up here. Is there room? You can come stand. You want to come stand up here?
You gotta come more this way.
You can stand right here.
Yeah, we.
Yeah.
A few of you come around.
There you go.
There's always
Get to be the mayor.
yeah. Head honcho.
Oh, Lord. Put me someplace else. I'm going down there. Ben should be down here, right?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I
Are we all
got y'all.
fitting now?
Re-in
Do we
now?
fit now?
Yep, look in here, please. 1, 2, 3, thank you. 1, 2, 3, and should be good. Thank you so much.
Please step to the mic if you'd like to say something. To get up and down a little
Okay.
bit. Warmed it.
I'll just say a few things real quick. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you on behalf of Swire. This is definitely not a me thing, so I'm just representing the company, and we truly are blessed and honored to participate and sponsor and help with community service, and we try to do as much as we can to help with the community, and so it's definitely a humbling honor that I'll accept on behalf of our team. So I do have some Coke people here, so they really deserve most of the credit because they do a lot of, or all of the work. So, but yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we'll definitely wear the badge with honor. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much to the committee that helps make the village happen. We know that it's probably a lot of work, but we're very excited to see what it looks like this year. Thank you. Anybody else like to make comment? Just in case. Okay, great. Well, thank you. Okay, up next we have approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting of February 21st, 2023. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
Did anybody happen to read Councilmember Lopez's minutes? I forgot to ask that in the work session.
I did not.
Does anybody want to read them real quick?
Or we can pull them and put them on another meeting.
Maybe we can remove them. Do we need a motion for that? Or can I just pull them?
Hire can do it at the end. Rich can do it at the end.
Oh, Rich, you're going to do it at the end?
I can do it at the end.
Thank you. Okay, do some speed reading over there. Regular meeting of April 4th, 2023, and the work session of April 18th. Councilmember White?
Yes, Chair, they are accurate to the best of my knowledge.
And the regular meeting of April 11th, 2023. Councilmember Nadolski?
I've reviewed them and they're good.
And the joint session of March 21st, 2023, and the special meeting of May 9th, 2023. Councilmember Hire?
Yes, Chair, I've read those and they are accurate to the best of my recollection. And short of Councilmember Lopez being here, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the minutes A, B, C, and D as listed in the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hire, a second by Councilmember Nadolski to approve the minutes excluding 4E. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilmember White, did you want to say something?
I said aye.
Oh, sorry, I just didn't hear you. I apologize. And I apologize to all of you. Oh, that passes. So I apologize that I did not notice that we had those minutes there. So we'll just do them next time. Consent item, we have Ogden Trails Network Committee appointment, the consideration of appointment of Luis Diaz. Is that person here tonight? Nope. Okay, to the Ogden Trails Network Committee. This is also a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do we have a motion?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just doing it all. Thank you. Sorry.
Chair, I will make that motion that we adopt this consent item by appointing Luis Diaz to the Ogden Trails Network Committee, and recognize also that this person is from District 2, which we've been
Yes.
striving to get somebody there for a
Very
long time.
exciting.
Appreciate our staff that's been working hard on that, and also that this has happened. So that's my motion.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So sorry about that. Motion by Councilmember Hire, second by Councilmember Nadolski to approve the consent item. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. I'm just jumping the gun. Okay, up next we have a public hearing, the fiscal year 2023 to 24 budget amendment, and we're going to welcome Justin Sorensen, our Deputy Comptroller.
Thank you, Chair and Council, for the opportunity to come before you tonight to present this budget amendment to the city budget. There are 4 funds affected in this, and I'll go through those right now. So the first portion is to use fund balance for, one is to make an adjustment to wages in the council budget. It's a small adjustment. The second one is a use of fund balance in the amount of $30,000 that will be set aside for our expenses related to our sister city from Hof, Germany. And so any expenses related to that will have some funds set aside that your office will be able to then use. We also had remaining funds available at the end of the year last year in the police department, and so we're proposing a use of fund balance in the amount of $250,000 that they will then use for equipment purchases, some other items, travel, training, office equipment, ballistics, helmets, IT equipment, and so on. So these extra funds are just helpful for them as to be able to continue to provide the needs for their department. There was also some vacancies in the fire department, additional funds there, and so we're proposing to appropriate $300,000 out of fund balance that will be used to purchase a new ambulance. There's a long lead time on those, and so we're proposing to appropriate $300,000 there. We're also proposing to transfer funds out of the general fund to the CIP fund in the amount of $2,044,725. This is part of the $3 million appropriation that was done in fiscal year 23 to purchase land. If you recall, we did purchase one of the park properties This is the remaining balance of that. We just feel it's easier to track in the CIP fund, so we're proposing to move it over there and to hold it there and as a reserve for any future part purchases. And then also, we are in the process of going through an updated compensation study, and the amount that is needed for that, the cost for that is a lot higher than was originally appropriated. And so as part of this budget opening, we're proposing to move $22,000 out of management services line item into non-departmental where the budget is for that compensation study. Thanks. That's okay, thanks. In the CIP fund, the first one is to appropriate the transfer in of the $2 million from the general fund. Again, that will be set aside for any future land purchases that will help benefit the park system. The other two items in the CIP fund are to appropriate $74,000 received from Rocky Mountain Power as a donation that are going towards a couple of EV charging stations that are currently being constructed here at the municipal building, in the parking lot, as you've seen. So that is to recognize those funds. And then the last one in the CIP fund is to appropriate $235,000 that we received from UDOT for a heritage sidewalk project. That project is already complete. We had funds in our sidewalk CIP enough to cover the project. This is just making that whole from those funds that we received. So the total appropriation in the capital improvement fund is just over $2.3 million. In our fleet and facilities fund, as we purchase new assets, new vehicles, new equipment, the intent is to try to sell the old equipment in hopes that we haven't held on to it so long that it's not worth anything. And so with the market the way it is right now, we've been able to sell a lot of old equipment and vehicles as it's been replaced. And so this is an appropriation to add more funds to replacement based on what has been sold and all these are done through gov deals. And so you can see the amounts there: $101,000 related to public service replacement, $42,000 for police, $24,000 for management services, and $33,000 for fire. So that's just to help add more funding for vehicle replacement, fleet replacement. And then the last one under the fleet and facilities fund is to add $300,000. This is in conjunction with the $300,000 in the general fund that will be used for that ambulance purchase. The total appropriation in the fleet fund is just over $500,000. And then the last two items there is in our miscellaneous grants, a recognition of a public safety first responders mental health services award from the state of Utah in the amount of $150,000, and then also an additional $10,000, an appropriation for an additional $10,000 for small community grants that would be awarded to the city. The total appropriation before you tonight is just shy of $3.6 million. So again, the request before you tonight is to adopt the proposed ordinance 2023-60 to increase the fiscal year 2024 Ogden City budget by $3,598,350. Any questions?
Chair Chaburga?
Yes.
Could I just also indicate that this budget amendment also amends the salary schedule to raise the salary of the vice chair of the council to the same as the chair? So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Jean.
Any questions for Justin? Doesn't look like it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. If you'd like to make comment on this item and this item alone, you can step up to the podium and state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. If you're online on the Zoom meeting, you may also raise your hand so that you can speak. Come on up.
Good evening, Angel Castillo. Those are great sweatshirts. I'm sure we'll sell a lot of them. Thanks for being here. Thanks for wearing the sweatshirts. Thanks for doing the Christmas Village thing. I love that. But getting back to where we are with this budget thing, there's something that's been kind of gnawing at me for a while, and it became apparent to me when I was a planning commissioner. And we have a sister city with Hoff. We're going to spend $30,000 on this sister city relationship. And I just want to know, what's the value of the sister-city relationship? Are we using it to reinforce our trade? I know I've been here when you gave gifts back and forth, and I know it's a nice thing, but I'd encourage us to do something that's a little bigger, especially since we're spending $30,000. Utah has a joint Mexican partnership. It's called JUMP, and Mexico imports $5.6 billion with a B, and it is the third largest trade relation in the state of Utah. And we have 500,000 Hispanic Latinos in Utah, and Mexican tourism brings in $10 million. Now, I know that some of you have been to Mexico, and it's an amazing cultural mecca, and there's a lot of great trade relationships with that state. But I think that if we're going to be investing our money and our time as citizens, we should have some sort of reciprocity that helps us, either gives us an incredible cultural boost or gives us something that we can work with regards to trade. I mean, we are the crossroads of the West, and there were a considerable amount of Mexicans that gave their blood and treasure to build the railroad, and we are the crossroads of the West. And there's a Mexican consulate in Salt Lake City. Why aren't we encouraging, if we're going to be spending money as a line item, and $30,000 is nothing compared to the hundreds and millions that get tossed around with the BDO, but $30,000 could drastically change one of those organizations that you just honored. So I feel as a citizen, if you're going to take that money, I'd like you to show me some return on investment with what we're doing with this relationship. And I'm not saying that, we're no longer having a relationship with them, but if we're going to spend money, let's get some return on investment for it. Let's have a big cultural boon, or let's have some sort of trade relation that enhances Ogden and helps us with manufacturing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Mexico, but it's pretty easy considering Governor Cox just officially formalized that relationship. I'd also encourage you to consider Japan or Brazil or anything, but I'd like a return on investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments about this item? Do we have anybody raising their hands online?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Council, and staff. Thank you for your time here this evening. My name is Stephen Van Wagner, resident of Ogden City. I'm standing up here before you this evening to ask in regards to the appropriation that was made for the parks. $3 million was made for the parks. Roughly $950,000 was spent on Lynn Elementary. I believe that Mayor Caldwell has already spent roughly $350,000 on the acquisition of a third of an acre next to Lynn Elementary. There's not $2 million left to transfer. However, my concern isn't that. My concern is more so that when we worked so hard as a community, when we worked with all of you as council members, when we worked through leadership to make that $3 million budget amendment, I've learned that we did that without making it a restrictive funding or a restrictive. I didn't know that term. That was taught to me by one of the council members. And so what I'm asking from all of you is that when we make that kind of an appropriation of $3 million, that it is a restrictive. That means that it comes back before this body, before that money can be spent. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought $350,000 was already spent to purchase that third acre attached to Lynn Elementary by Mayor Caldwell, which would reduce that $2 million. That's my concern. That's my question. I hope that y'all can take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any online. Would anybody like to close the public hearing?
Chair, I would make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Vice Chair Ritchie to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any other discussion? I'm not sure, Justin, if you could respond to the restriction of the $3 million. That question.
Yes, so that $300,000 was spent. So this appropriation is moving the funds from the general fund to the CIP fund, and that's where that $350,000 was spent out of. So it'll be the $2 million less that $300,000 is what will be available. So
And is that CIP fund restricted in any way as? Mr.
Yeah, so
Roberts?
it allows us a way to track it separately outside of the general fund so that when we do have a property that we can bring before you as an opportunity, then we'll be able to appropriate those funds. But just to keep it separate from the general fund to kind of keep track of it a little easier. That's the CIP fund's intent, is to help with that. So.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, and I may have missed it, or I might, it seems like I remember we voted on that then property as a council. Is that right, or no?
Just did the funding.
Just the funding aspect?
And I believe that putting in the CIP does restrict it to property purchase
Yes,
only.
correct.
You can't just use it for anything.
Correct.
And then I'm not sure who the best person is to answer about the Hoff question. I don't know if that's you, Janine. I don't remember exactly how long that relationship has been going, or I know there's several community stakeholders that are very invested in that partnership, but I'm not sure about the other questions.
But this is it will be the 70th anniversary. The relationship with Hof was the first sister city relationship between an American city and a German city after World War II. That we do have the Hof German festival that actually the county runs now. Originally, it was started with the city. I mean, the 30,000, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to spend 30,000. That's just how much I requested be put in the budget. So whether it gives you return or not, I guess that's a subjective thing.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm totally open to additional sister city relationships too, but I know that Councilmember Lopez has been excited about some Mexico relationships.
Since he's not here, I was going to mention some things. So Councilmember Lopez was invited, and I think we supported his travel on the governor's trade mission to Mexico. They visited Guadalajara, which is his hometown. He was able to actually make introductions on behalf of the state of Utah and Ogden City with officials in Guadalajara. And that's part of how the Ballet Folklorico came to Ogden. And we recently had some major investors in town that they brought from that trade mission that are looking at projects in Ogden, including youth recreation projects that they want to fund in addition to economic development. And then there's lots of arts opportunities that could come with it, but Councilmember Lopez was also invited back to attend and be a part of the State of the State address in Jalisco, Mexico, as a dignitary from that trade mission. So there are returns on investment from some, not a sister city relationship, but I think it lends itself to that because it shows where we do get actual deliverables for the funds that we spend.
And I know that we had all planned to travel to Germany in 2020 because our council has never gone there. They always come here. But that got canceled because of a pandemic. But that would have been fun to build that relationship a little bit more. Any other questions or comments or discussion before we consider a motion?
Thank you.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-60.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Blair to adopt proposed amendment 2023-60. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie?
Aye.
Chair Chaburka?
Aye. And that passes. Thank you. Thanks, Justin. Up next, we invite Taylor Nielsen, our Assistant City Engineer, and I'm not sure if Barton is coming up with you too, maybe not, to talk with us about the flood hazard regulations. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Chaburka, Vice Chair Ritchie, and members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Taylor Nielsen. I am the Assistant City Engineer here at Ogden City. And I know this late in the evening, the most exciting thing to do is to talk about maps, and so that's what I'm here for. No, we are going to briefly, I love maps. We love maps, we love plans, we love ordinances, and we like standards. So that's what we live in the engineering world. Briefly, what I wanted to talk about was some map updates that have recently happened through FEMA. And then we as a city are coming through having to update some of our ordinances for building regulations. So these kind of happen in tandem. So even though I'm going to show you some maps tonight, there will be nothing that you'll be reviewing on the maps because they've already kind of been approved and gone through by FEMA, who again house all this information. Excuse me. So what we have that happens normally over a small period of time is we start to have new development amongst other items that require that we need to come in and start reevaluating some of the flood hazards that we have within the city. So there's a couple of different areas that we'll show you, but that requires us to come in, work with FEMA, work with the state of Utah, and try and get some of these areas updated. In fact, as we were going through this before, the state of Utah is the one that spearheaded these recent map update projects. And I'll show you that timeline here shortly. So what we're here talking about is the National Flood Insurance Program. We as Ogden City do participate in this program. It means that we can get reduced rates for our residents. And so in order to continue receiving these same rates and to be a participant in this program, we need to make some ordinance updates. And so that's what we're here talking about. Largely the ones that we'll go through are some building adjustments if you're in a floodplain. That's the only ones that we'll be discussing or that these will be in relation to. Other than that, not much else will change or have impact. So this was the timeline as outlined by the state of Utah when they undertook this project. It was funded back in 2012, and it moved its way all the way through doing different modeling and everything else. We were trying to be done with a lot of our stuff in between 2020 and 2021. That was kind of set off track by a certain global event that happened in the year 2020, and so it pushed us all the way back to somewhere around 2022 before those maps were finally completed. As such, there are a couple of communities that are around us that don't participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. It just means that they don't get to experience some of the same reduced rates and same coverage that we do. But again, we see this as a benefit. Just wanted to show that. And then we have the study and scope of the different areas that they had looked at, they being the state, as they were reviewing some of these maps and the evaluation as such. So there was a public comment period, there was lots of discussions, there was evaluations that happened, and that was that timeline that I showed you, dating all the way back to from 2018 to up and through 2022 for a lot of this hydraulic analysis and other information. So this is just an overview of the map and some of the areas that they had looked at. You can see it extend in North Ogden, Harrisville, amongst others. So what is a flood map? So we have a couple of different areas that we talk about. This is actually the ball fields out at Fort Buenaventura. You show that hatched area that runs right through the middle. That's the floodway. Those are the areas that we know when the river has high flows. That's where water will be. The light blue areas are the areas when the water gets high enough, it will go to those areas first and then eventually into the orange areas after. So the areas that we will specifically be talking about for some of these ordinances according to the map are these hatched areas that I pointed out there on the bottom, and then the light blue areas. There's some lesser restrictions on the orange, but it generally is just a lot of good information that we're trying to protect homes, buildings, other sorts of development as we go into some of these areas. We're also trying to make sure that as development happens, we're not building high on one side and causing problems on the other. So this was back, just a picture of way back when we had some flooding. You can see it probably looks familiar. This is when we had the flooding that went through the ball fields. It has since been fixed. Our ball fields are back in working order, but you can see water has a very powerful opportunity to make its way through some of these different areas. So I would say based on some of that information, you can see that those maps are fairly correct, even though we did have some high water events this last year. When we went in and made the improvements, we were able to protect against some of these different areas for the future. So these are just some proposed changes. I will scroll through these quickly. Again, these were maps and everything that were reviewed by FEMA and by the state of Utah. The purple was the old, the yellow is the proposed. So they just talk about some old areas that they were removing from the maps, and then some other areas that they would be bringing in, showing a little that are new. And you can see a lot of these improvements are happening around some of these different river areas. It's because we've been making significant improvements, and that's thanks to help from the council, amongst other capital projects that have been happening, like the river project and everything else. So you can see here's some adjustments that have happened from the last time that they made the map updates, part of the Ogden River project. You can see this as it goes a little bit further upstream. What used to happen in some of the old flood events is it would jump the bank and make its way into some houses and structures. Since we've been able to make a lot of these improvements, there's been significant reduction in flooding and other structure damage that we've had in some of these areas. This is over around the ball fields and then the Ogden Business Exchange. This is the other ball field one that we had looked at earlier that had a different colorful map. And then this is just a little bit further south of the fields. And then this is over here just east of the mall, again, adjacent to the Weber River. And then this is the north end of BDO that actually had some adjustments made because of some projects that had happened through that area. And so we are working in conjunction right now with the Boyer Group and trying to make sure we can make some improvements to have as much developable land as possible and not be inundated any additional infrastructure or other problems. There was what we considered a significant win. This was the 5 Points intersection. For whatever reason, back in the early days of the mapping, it had been drawn in that it floods, and we hadn't really experienced many opportunities to see that. And so as they went through and remodeled it, evaluated some hydraulic capacity, and we were actually able to show them some of the recent stormwater improvements that we had made through there, they came and removed that section from this area. So again, this was part of the overall study that they had otherwise done. And so we were just able to provide some additional information. It probably should be noted that they didn't study the entire city. They just took on bits and pieces of trying to cover what they could as far as the funding that they had received, and they being the state of Utah. So we're here tonight to talk about some ordinance updates. What they would like us to do is adopt these maps with their effective date. And so these would be the new and updated maps. Probably the side note is whatever item we decide to move forward with tonight, these maps are all effective. So anyone that has a loan or anything else will be impacted by these new maps. All that we are talking about is continuing to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and that would by being adjusting this language that we're talking about. So one of them is we're adopting the maps. The other one is if we don't have what they call base flood elevation data, the elevation to which we think there will be flooding or an issue, that we have competent staff who in this instance would be the city engineer, would make that evaluation based on the current information provided or the other analysis that we have available to us. The other development standard that we have, and this is actually part of the IRC, the International Residential Code, is that new residential construction should have the lowest floor, including their basement, being 1 foot above that base flood elevation. So this is if you're building in one of those light blue areas, you show a propensity for flooding, we're asking you to build your structure 1 foot above where we anticipate the lowest floor would be. There's also some items that come along with the residential code that say that we need to have a professional engineer or a licensed architect evaluate some of the different building methods, floodproofing, or other items to ensure that they don't, if they are or do experience some flooding issues, that we will be able to try and protect those structures as much as possible. And then the other one is that the building official will now have to keep those records a little bit longer than we otherwise would have. We normally had a 7-year expiration. They want us to now make that indefinitely. So, and then the other one that they have is we have what's called an elevation certificate. That means when someone installs foundations and your building floor, that they want us to come in, not us, excuse me, they want the applicant at the time to come in, complete a survey, fill out some information that we can then turn into FEMA and say this is the elevation of the building, showing that it does in fact meet the intent of being built above the base flood elevation, and we're able to take care of some of those issues. In the event that there is a problem or there is an issue where we feel like the information is incorrect, there is a waiver that can be offered through the building official, and they wanted us to add that into our ordinance. We actually didn't have that before, and so the state came back and said you need to have that as part of being part of the program. So that was language that we have added, or excuse me, are proposing to add. So what are the questions we normally get is how can I lower my rates? We try and mitigate as many risks as possible, and that's why we're trying to be and implement smart standards and adopt ordinances that help people recognize and realize where they're building. The other thing you can do is apply for a letter of map change. That's the process that FEMA was going through, and that process goes through FEMA, and then you can review the elevation certificates that we talked about. Another one that the sites all talk about is considering a higher deductible for your flood insurance. The other one is if you're curious about resources or seeing some of the maps that have been shared or wondering where your home may or may not be or where this information comes from, this is a page of available resources where we go and get all of our information, and this is where we try and point the public. We also have some flooding information available on our website that we try and make available to those who will call into us or ask questions so we can try and point them in the right directions. So that is all of the information that I have tonight. Do you have any questions for me?
Looks like there's a question right there.
Taylor, is the base data layer, is it digital elevation models or LiDAR? Like what is the data set that it's based on?
So there's a couple of different data sets that come in. Sometimes it's been based on LiDAR data, if we can get the LiDAR data to be accurate enough. So sometimes when we will fly across the state, we'll have a 3-meter LiDAR data set, and that 3 meter means that we will be somewhere in here. When we're doing flood elevations, what we will then try and do is use a surveyor to go out and collect additional information for areas that don't make sense as they're modeling it. So when I say we, I mean the formal we. This was the state of Utah had hired AECOM to go and undertake a lot of this stuff. So they went through an initial modeling process, started using the LiDAR data, and then refined that data using on-the-ground surveys or additional information that we were able to provide to them, such as our storm drain information or other information we might have had on file for the areas that they were studying specifically.
That's a huge effort. It's impressive. I don't know you as one to brag, so I want to brag for you. But beyond using the data for this need, which we have to have, and we have to do this work before there's flood. Last spring, we were in flood scenario, and our neighborhood reached out to me and said, who do we contact to coordinate sandbagging and preparing for flood from some of these perennial streams? And rather than sandbagging everything, and sandbags were a limited supply, you guys were relying on this data at the time. I remember in that neighborhood meeting, and you were able to stage in specific spots where you know were most likely to be flood prone. Saved a ton of resources and made us a lot more responsive. And then when the temperatures hit, we knew exactly where to go prepare. So rather than wasting all kinds of time and energy in areas we didn't need, just wanted to thank you for using this information proactively to protect our community.
No, thank you. And that's an excellent point of, wanting to make sure we can share that information as readily as possible and try and get that out to everybody. But thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll receive public input on this item. Thank you, Taylor. You can step up to the podium and state your name for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes. And if you're online, on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand. This is public comment just for this item alone, the flood hazard regulations. Okay, I'm not seeing any movement. It's not a public hearing. So
Oh, that's right. No need to.
Any other discussion, or would anybody like to propose a motion?
I would say I'll go ahead and propose that we adopt ordinance 2023-61.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Ritchie, a second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-61. This is also a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you. Up next, we have reports from the administration, fire alarm amendments. Our fire chief, Matthew, is here. I saw him. Oh, there. Hello, how are you? To talk with us about the fire alarm amendment.
Council Chair Chaburka and fellow council members, thank you for this opportunity, and public as well, to listen to what this is about. What's before you is we're looking to amend our negligently caused fire emergency plan to add the addition of how to deal with false alarms and or nuisance alarms. And just as a matter of definition, a false alarm is an alarm that goes off that might be an intentional misuse of an alarm system, or any other type of alarm that's other than caused by a fire, smoke, or any kind of water flow from a sprinkler head as you see up above you. The nuisance fire alarm is really, the best way to sum it up, is a mechanical failure of an alarm system. Typically in most commercial buildings and other public buildings that have multiple occupancies, there's a fire alarm system, and a lot of times there's a sprinkler alarm system. This particular ordinance change does not affect single-family or two-family dwellings, so it has no effect there. So what we're trying to do is that we have some aging buildings in our community, whether they be apartment buildings or commercial buildings, that their alarm systems are also aging. And because they're technologically becoming antiquated, we have no tools to require them to be upgraded, aside from just having them function to the fire code when they were designed and installed. And sometimes what happens is building owners take the position of, it's not like paint, carpet, HVAC, or any other system that the tenants can enjoy or benefit from. They figure a fire alarm system is just there and it takes care of me. Matter of fact, an interesting story, I tell you, a fire captain from Salt Lake called me 4 or 5 years ago, and his daughter was coming up to go to college at Weber State. And he says, tell me about this place. This is where I'm thinking about having my daughter stay. So I think of that as a fire chief, is when we have an apartment building, someone's daughter is staying there, someone's son is staying there. And if family members or loved ones wanted to know, they would say, is this building safe? And I assume it's in a community with a city that requires ordinances. They have a fire department. They make sure it's protected. They have rules and laws. They have suppression systems, alarm systems. I assume they're all working, right? Well, that's why I'm here tonight, is I want to make sure they're working. And what we don't have is a methodology to really take issue with, say, an owner that maybe drags their feet on doing the necessary upkeep maintenance on that particular system. And so what happens is, and I can tell you about, we have one, this is a consequence of this effect, a little different than the police department with some of their burglary alarms. When an alarm goes off in an apartment complex, and it goes off once a month, what do you as an occupant think? Do you get up and get out of the building? What if it happens twice a month? What if it happens 3 times a month? Okay, now it's happening 4 times a month. And the owner, on some occasions, teaches a couple of occupants how to reset the alarm system. Very concerning. Because what happens is everyone in that apartment building gets complacent, no longer leaves when the alarm system goes off. The fire department, we have natural human behavior. We show up for the 3rd time this month. We don't think there's a fire there. It's a nuisance alarm. We let our guard down. We're not as sharp as we maybe need to be. And so now if we do have a fire in there, now the burden of us is switched from putting the fire out to getting 50 occupants out of the building because they've ignored the notification. That's pretty labor intensive. So the consequence of a alarm system malfunctioning and malfunctioning repeatedly impacts the tenants, impacts the fire department. So our ability to address it is what we're proposing tonight. That you get 2 false alarms per year with no consequence other than us coming to you saying, look, we believe your system's malfunctioning, or you have a tenant that is misusing a system, we need to get this thing addressed. And you get those basically with no consequence other than us discussing with them saying, how are we going to fix this problem in a partnership? The 3rd time, you're subject to a potential civil penalty of $125. The 4th time, you're subject to a civil penalty of $250. At that time, we may, and I quote, may, if we get very little compliance or support from the owner of trying to rectify the problem, we may really lower the hammer and saying, okay, we're going to force you to deactivate this system until it's fixed. And if you have a non-functioning system, because it's been deactivated, we may pull your certificate of occupancy, which is a heavy load because that means that your tenants can no longer stay here. That would be a significant event. We've come close to that in some systems, not on a fire alarm system, but on fire escape issues and other critical life safety issues where we think we can't let people stay here tonight because it's unsafe. They can't get out if there's a fire. And so we've had to look at that, and it becomes a very significant decision we make. We consult with the mayor. We look for alternatives for the tenants because they're the ones that are impacted the worst in terms of potentially being displaced. So that's a big decision. So that's a heavy situation. We don't look at that lightly. We have very rarely have ever had to look at that or even resort to thinking about that. But having this in place to be able to say that we have an ability to take action against the owner to force them to repair, properly maintain, fix, update the system is the tool that we need. And that's what the crux of this ordinance is all about, is giving us the tool to take issue with a system that all the tenants believe are protecting them, and it's not. And that's why we want this addition, is to be able to do that and force some change. And just, since we talked to you, and I gave you an example, we had one problem property we're working with at the time in the work session. It's been, I believe, 2 months. We've had 4 false alarms at that facility, just in that time. They're up to 40-something for the year. We are working with them. The system is being updated. We got other people involved. They're starting to cooperate. We're getting help. We don't need to resort to the fine because we're starting to see cooperation. But we feel like we have to have something, because we would rather force them to repair it and get it in good working order than go into the extreme of, okay, I can't go home tonight knowing that they're staying in here and they're not properly protected. Because that is someone's daughter. That is someone's son. That is someone's loved one. And that's the way we think in the fire department. It's our job to protect their safety, especially when they assume and believe that they are being protected when they look up and they have a fire alarm system, they have a sprinkler system, but if it's not in proper working order, they're not protected. So with that, I did receive a text from Mara regarding some questions about how this would affect any alarm companies. This is not like the police department who did away with their penalties and responding on alarms. We'll continue to respond to these buildings if a 911 call or sign of smoke or anything like that happens. We just won't respond on a system failure alarm until that's repaired. And so it doesn't really impact the alarm companies. It impacts the owner. And then we also would inform the tenants that you no longer have a working fire alarm system. And because of your safety, we've got to take some serious consequences. Now, one of the problems we had with one property, short of vacating, we required a fire watch, where they had to have a person awake during all sleeping hours to protect on behalf of all the sleeping and make sure they could vacate and get the building vacated if an emergency occurred. That's one tool we'll use. It's not necessarily required in the fire code, but we've tried to use that short of pulling their certificate of occupancy. So with that, do you have questions on this proposal?
Chair, I do have some, it's just some questions with regards to, you mentioned that it's not really a central station kind of an issue, but do most or many of these report to a central station and then, or
yes,
they don't report directly to the fire department?
Correct. They go to an alarm company, and that alarm company in turn calls the 911 center and notifies them to say, we have an alarm notification of X. And just not all fire alarm systems are created equally. A fire alarm system with today's technology versus 25, 30 years ago, totally different. We can get information about it's an actual flow alarm. A flow alarm means that head up there, the fusible link is gone and water's flowing. That's a totally different alarm type in my head when I'm responding than if an alarm system is just alarming, making noise. We have no idea where it's at. It's somewhere in the building. Doesn't give any specific information about it. And so as technology's changed over the years, they don't automatically have to upgrade their alarm systems. They have to keep them in a state of good repair and meet the fire code intent when they were built. What's happening is some of these systems are not being properly maintained, and we need a tool to get them to properly maintain them.
So so it's not an issue, and you said it doesn't apply to the single and duplexes, single family house duplexes. So it's not a Simply Safe kind of a problem. It's a bigger deal than that.
Right.
Do you have any issues with and I have some experience with one where, you know, at our church, there's those little red deals that you
Pull stations.
Yep, those things, and they're all low enough so children can get to them because they need to be able to.
Right.
But they do.
Right.
And so I wonder if that's kind of an issue. Or,
We would use that discretion in terms of what is the owner doing and working with us to try to mitigate that. You know, oftentimes that's, you know, it's a little prank, and you know, you get to the kids, explain to them why it's not a good thing to do, crying wolf, and it's not a real problem.
Yeah.
And hopefully that problem goes away. Our significant problem is not that type of false alarm. Our significant problem is technological dysfunction.
Okay, so it's not the bacon burning necessarily, or?
Nope.
Okay.
That's a good alarm. We go on that. There's smoke in a building. We'll go figure it out, get the smoke out of the building, take care of it. That's not a nuisance
And a neighbor
alarm.
calling because somebody's smoker's going crazy and, yeah, okay.
They see a barbecue on the patio and they think the backyard's on fire. That's not a nuisance alarm. That's it. They think that's a fire.
I just, you know, these questions, they just go through my mind. And I thank you for being patient and answering them, because I think they do.
They're good questions.
Inform the public a little bit on what is, what isn't, so.
For sure. Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much, Chief. Okay, be happy to consider a motion if there's no more discussion.
Chair, I make that motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-64, amending the municipal code about fire.
I think it's 63
How about
first, yeah.
2023-63? There we go. I'll just make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Nadolski to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-63. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie?
Aye.
Chair Chaburka?
Aye, and that passes.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we'll invite Fire Marshal Kevin Brown to talk with us about fire code amendments. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chair and Council. I'm Kevin Brown, Fire Marshal for Ogden City. This proposed ordinance change is kind of some housekeeping to keep Ogden ordinance in line with state law. So the state of Utah adopts the international codes on a 3-year cycle. That's building codes, property maintenance codes, fire codes. And it used to be that Ogden City would go every 3 years and change the ordinance to show that we've adopted the 2015 code and in line with the state, 2018, 2021. Several code cycles ago, the ordinance was changed to say the current edition of adopted state code. But a couple of things got orphaned in that process. The International Property Maintenance Code still reads 2015 version, so that needs to be updated to the current edition of the state code. And the appendices of the International Fire Code also got left out, and it reads 2015 edition. So we've suggested changing that to current adopted state code. In this same ordinance, there's a couple of items for building services. It's listed currently in the adopted ordinance as inspection services. That would be changed to building services division. So just a name change there. And then on the filing of appeals to the Board of Appeals, our current adopted ordinance says 10 days. State law says 20 days. So we just need to change that to be in line with the state code. And that's really the whole deal. Do you have any questions on that?
Any questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
If anybody would like to discuss that further, that would be great, or I'd be happy to accept a motion.
Chair, I'd make a motion that we would adopt proposed ordinance 2023-64.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Ritchie and a second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-64. This is also a roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie?
Aye.
Chair Chaburka?
Aye, And that passes. Thank you so much. Oh, up next, we have two items that our Executive Director, Janine Eller-Smith of the City Council, will present. The first one is new business, the Community Renewable Energy Program Agreement.
Thank you, Chair Chaburka and council members. I'm happy to present this to you tonight. What we're going to be talking tonight is the what we normally call the utility agreement. Its formal name is Community Renewable Energy Program Agreement. This is the agreement between Ogden City and Rocky Mountain Power that will become effective if the city adopts the ordinance. The slides that I'm going to go through were actually prepared by the Community Renewable Agency. Oh, and by the way, this is the new rebrand. If you might remember, we used to call it Utah 100, and they've rebranded it to Utah Renewable Communities. I did reformat these slides to make the mandatory 24-point agreement so that people can read it.
Thank you.
So this is signing this utility agreement is required procedural step for the communities. That's something that was required by the rules that the Public Service Commission required. It also you're also required to adopt the utility other elements of the agreement, which was the governance agreement, which was initially adopted. And they have asked that you adopt this by November 17th, which is why it is on the agenda for tonight. The utility agreement does not finalize Ogden's participation in the program. That would come with the ordinance that would be adopted at the very end of the process. It doesn't include projected program rates for the participating customers. There will be an estimate submitted with the application that Rocky Mountain Power submits, and then the Public Service Commission will finalize that. Right now, we don't have those estimated rates because they're still discussing how to project those rates. There's some assumptions that have to be made, and so there's some discussions with Rocky Mountain Power about what assumptions should be used to determine those rates. It doesn't require any additional monetary commitment by any community right now. The initial noticing costs, which we'll show in a minute, will only come into effect if you adopt the participation ordinance, and all of the remaining costs of the program will be paid through program rates. So I just wanted to review really quickly what Utah Renewable Communities has been up to. We have 3 committees. We worked with the consultants regularly to advance this program. There's been a lot of work done with Rocky Mountain Power, and there's still quite a fair amount of work to be done before Rocky Mountain Power can file that program application. But the agency, represented mostly by staff from Salt Lake City and Summit County, coordinate, and then our legal representation and our consultant have worked closely with Rocky Mountain Power, with the Division of Public Utilities and Office of Consumer Services. They've talked to the assistant program, the implementers. We've talked to clean energy advocates, had lots of discussions with interested community members and other stakeholders. So some of the program application has been completed, or we've made substantial progress. So that model ordinance was finalized and approved, and individual community low-income plans have been finalized and approved. We had some boundary maps that are created that need to be submitted. customer counts and loads, and opt-out notices have actually been drafted. And then this is the utility agreement. It was approved by the board, and now they're just asking for approval by each of the participating 18 communities. Did want to make it clear that this is going to be valued that state statute specifically says that this program, when it's implemented, must be borne by the participating customers. None of the cost can be shifted to other customers in the Rocky Mountain Power System. This is more of just a, a graphic of where we've committed so far. So the enabling legislation was done in 2019. We had that community net resolution that needed to be passed by 2019. The governance agreement was signed, and now we're just completing the utility agreement. So the next step will be program application. You notice that there's a target submission date of the end of 2023. I think that's really optimistic at this point, but they are still working on it. So what is included in this utility agreement are the 4 elements that are required by the statute. And that is that the communities, or I should say the statute or the rules, that the communities agree to pay for the consultants. Ogden City has already made their contribution of that $70,000 that they made early on, what we've made early on, contributed to this, and so there's not any more funding required from Ogden City for that. Communities have to agree to reimburse Rocky Mountain Power for the costs associated with the 2 required opt-out notices. And so that's one thing that is required by the agreement. There must be a description of how unpaid termination fees will be addressed. And basically, the agreement just says they'll be paid how it's agreed upon. So it's pretty open right now. They haven't exactly determined that, although it's the agency's position that those termination fees should be paid as part of the program rates. But if not, then they'll have to discuss how that gets covered. And then it asks for the identification of any thermal power plants that will not serve program customers, in other words, what they call replaced assets. And right now, there's no proposal to replace assets. The consultants have determined that that would make the rates pretty high to do that, and so they're not suggesting that at this point. And again, so the utility agreement does not finalize the participation, and it doesn't include the program rates. And it doesn't require any additional monetary commitment right now. They have estimated that the noticing costs, if the council, the city actually adopts the final ordinance and implements the program, Ogden City would be about $56,000. We initially appropriated $35,000, so that there might be some additional costs associated with that. However, they are negotiating with Rocky Mountain Power that maybe only one of those need to be mailed, and that if any, to everyone, and if anyone is receiving an electronic billing, that there's really not cost associated with that, or very little cost. So that could bring that down. So the actual cost would be somewhere between $35,000 and $55,000. So that is the utility agreement. I don't know if you have any questions that I can answer.
I don't have any questions, but first I just want to say how much I appreciate all of your work on this effort, Janine and Mara's participation, and I'm sure other attorneys, as well as Lorenzo. I know you've been attending a lot of the meetings since I haven't been able to, so thank you so much. Any questions or comments for Janine?
I have a couple, Janine.
Okay.
It said in there that there's 18 member communities still left in the program, correct?
Correct.
Do you know what we started with?
23.
Okay. And then when I was reading over it, on the description of how unpaid termination fees will be addressed, it sounded like, and explain this better to me, if the program were to dissolve, that's what this is referring to, right? Not
Partly.
Partly, okay.
Partly, yeah. The way it's written is that a participating customer who cannot, the only way they can get out of is by paying the termination fee.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the program, what happens if everybody opts out? They are still included in until they pay that termination fee. So the bigger issue is, like you said, if there's this cascade failure and everybody leaves the program because of something that happened with rates, now we have let's say a $60 million project that needs to be paid for. How is that going to happen? That's what we generally refer to as the backstop.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still discussing how best to cover that.
Okay.
They're looking at grants, they're looking at other options.
Okay.
One idea was like insurance. You could have an insurance policy or something. I don't know. Up in the air.
Janine, can you explain why it's an opt-out instead of opt-in program?
Well, I think it's just like any other opt-in program that we've discussed in the city in past years. Generally speaking, if it's an opt-in program, you get 20-30% participation. If it's an opt-out program, you get about 80-85% participation, just because people, are okay staying in, or they don't know about it, whatever it is that means that they're in the program. And so that's why they just needed that level of participation in order to make it pencil, essentially.
I think when Kurt was here before, he said we had about 17% participation rate in Ogden City in the Blue Sky program, which is more of an opt-in program.
Yeah, it's actually like
Is it higher?
15%
Is it
now.
15?
I got some numbers for 2021, and it's about 15%.
'Cause people
Well,
could do that now.
13% Blue Skies, and there's a couple of percentages in net metering, which is solar power.
Subscriber solar.
Has there ever been a discussion about an alternative program?
Do you want to answer that, or you want me to do?
Not that I know of. I mean, are you talking? I mean, we initially talked about it just for Ogden City, but that didn't. We weren't able to kind of move forward with that.
Yeah, we worked with Weber State Sustainability folks and met with Rocky Mountain Power just to see what an alternate program might look like, but that wasn't feasible at the time. The subscriber solar, did you say that percentage included subscriber? Because
No,
I know
she
that there's
didn't.
no, there's like no, what are they
I
called?
thought
Like
I had
subscriptions
those here. I
left right now.
apologize.
They're all sold out, but I
Right.
don't know if it's all, what area in the state.
When I checked, they do kind of put you on a waiting list.
Yeah. you get
And the nice thing about subscriber solar is it doesn't matter whether I own my house or I'm a renter, because
Right.
those offset my power bill no matter what. And so they move around with me.
Right. I think the big issue with that is kind of what we're running up against is there's not enough infrastructure of solar power available to provide more subscriber solar. That's my understanding. So that's kind of one of the reasons this program's coming over, is because it'll build additional infrastructure. But
Yeah.
that's just my
Well, subscriber
understanding.
solar was a bit, it cost actually a sizable amount more than your regular utility bill.
Mhm.
Your regular Rocky Mountain Power bill for the same kilowatt hours, but it is something that is available for people who are passionate about this.
Janine, can you address the low-income plan and potential limitations of that with
Sure.
some of the challenges there?
So they did really work really hard and did the best they could to come up with a low-income plan. We've identified partners in the area that can help us do outreach and contact people that might qualify for usage. The trouble is with that is that you have to qualify for other low-income plans to qualify for this low-income plan. And the limitations on the other low-income plans require documentation. So you need to be able to show that you're here legally, work permit, whatever. So if you can't show those documents, then you would not qualify. I did look at some data. Yesterday, I was just kind of looking at what we have, and based on August numbers, there are about 1.5% of the customers in Ogden are on a low-income plan, and yet our poverty rate is about 12%. So, there's definitely either some people that could qualify that aren't seeking out those resources for whatever reason.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Thanks so
Do you have
much,
any more
Janine.
questions?
No more questions?
Not for Janine. I have a lot of questions about the program that have been unsettling to me since its inception. I don't know if this is a good time to bring them up. I'm not sure it's going to matter that much as far as, but I do think it is something that needs a voice.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been an issue from its inception is the nature of the opt-out, and just by virtue of the statistics that Janine mentioned, 20% participation as an opt-in, roughly 80 as an opt-out. That pretty well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that they're just counting on people being unaware or something to be, and I'm going to use the word trapped into a program that they just didn't choose. Our council has had, in my tenure as a council member, there's been 2 or 3 other items that have been presented, and they're good items, they're good things. But they would have required an opt-out program, and we've always been averse to that because of the degree of poverty that we have in our community. And so those are things that I think are problematic from the very beginning. There's other issues too. There's been a lot of talk about that if we don't do this as a city, we are taking away choice, which seems exactly the opposite to me. If we do this, we are taking away choice for those 60% of the people that lie in the middle between an opt-out and an opt-in. So we're making that choice for them, and is that the appropriate role of government to get in between their utility provider and them? We have a public service commission that's what they do. The choices that I think everybody has is this blue sky and subscriber solar. It has been mentioned that you have to kind of get in a waiting list to be on subscriber solar. There's also a choice that people could, that do own their home. They can go into the net metering program and install those on their own roof. And that's entirely, I salute people who do that. This is another thing, is that this has the real look of it being a political issue more than a let's do something good issue. As has been identified in some of our work sessions, that it excludes nuclear power, which in my mind is the only real option that is invented at this point that will solve both clean energy as well as reliable energy. None of these sources that have been identified, with the exceptions of hydro, which I don't think is being looked at very seriously as something that we're going to expand, doesn't provide reliable energy. They just provide sustainable energy. And I think we've got to have both. We've got to have a reliable energy source as well as clean source, and nuclear does provide that at this point. There's a lot of promising technology that's coming on for communities to do something like that. So those are some of the things that I think are as far as making our air cleaner, this will virtually have no effect on the air here. It may somewhere, but not here. Nor on the Wasatch Front. So those are some of the things that I think are problematic for this program in general. That I don't know how they're going to overcome those problems. As I sit here today, I will probably vote to stay till we get to something, but unless and until they can address some of those issues, I think this is problematic, and I'm going to call it a boondoggle, because it's evident that all this great work that's been going forward is they're so far behind on what their timeline was because of the problems that are inherent in it. The other problems that I see from our perspective is the amount of man hours that Janine and Jay and a lot of our city staff have spent trying to work through some of the issues with this thing. I have not tried to put any kind of a number to that, the amount of dollars that we spent in addition to the $70,000 trying to get to this point, but I'm sure it's not a small number, and it probably won't continue to, and it will continue on, and I just don't know why it's the government's job to get between the people and their utility provider.
Real quick, I'll just piggyback on a little bit of what Councilman Heyer said. I agree with the opt-out. I've always been against the opt-out concept, but I believe there's a reason organizations or companies choose to go that route for that very reason. It does provide more people to stay in a certain program that probably would not enroll or be in the program in the first place. So I believe that idea is flawed. I believe it shows the flaw based on the termination fees and the termination of the steps and hoops that must be taken to get out of the program. You cannot be out until all those fees are paid, and then if it goes into a next billing cycle, then you automatically have to pay that next billing cycle, and you just keep staying in until you get everything paid off, which I have a problem with. I also believe it's kind of the same way this was set up. It pieces you along so that you get to a certain point where it's, well, we've come this far, you might as well stay in now. And which is what we've done. And so I appreciate everything Councilman Heyer said. I just, like I said, throughout history or my time here with the council, as was mentioned, we've had numerous opportunities or numerous services or organizations that have come and asked us to participate in a program where it is opt out, and it's not something I came up with. It's not something Councilman Heyer came up with, but it's generally been the consensus of council members that the opt out is not something we tend to support or tend to pursue. So that's always been a problem for me. There's some other little problems that I have along the way, and at some point, I believe, like Councilman Heyer said, there's going to come a point where we either have to jump all in or rip the Band-Aid off and make a decision. And sounds like that's coming quickly. So.
Well, I wouldn't say quickly.
Yeah.
Well,
optimistically, okay.
Quicker than you.
Chair, there was one other item that I neglected.
Can we let everybody else talk first?
Yeah,
and then
I
come
just
back
thought
to
I'd get me out of the way, but
Okay,
go ahead.
yeah.
Okay. No, I appreciate what both of you have shared, and I think similar concerns that I've had. I mean, fundamentally, I like the idea of having clean energy, and the goals behind the program I can get behind. And it is interesting. When I was running for this office 2 years ago, I thought this was going to be something we'd be voting on like within a few months of me taking office, and here we are a couple of years later. So it just speaks to the complexity of this whole issue, and I think there's a lot to understand, and that's really where I kind of find myself is I'm okay to stay in to get more information, at the risk of what Councilmember Blair just indicated. But I'm okay to say I think we need more information. I mean, it's hard for me to I think it's hard for me to just say I'm 100% committed to this without having all the information. I think that would probably be irresponsible just to be 100% in on something without having all the details. And the fact that it's taking so long to get there, that does makes me nervous with what the final product might look like, and the costs involved. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, there's just so much still there to determine, right? And I know that. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
You can say it. So in my experience, everybody wants cleaner. We all agree on that. I think I'm the only one here that has a master's in science who works in environmental and natural resource. And this long timeline has given me an opportunity to meet with a lot of experts on this topic, this program, on the energy grid, on how to set rates, and on renewable energy beyond special interest groups that we hear from. And I've learned a lot. I've supported it all the way to what we are in step 4, and I'm going to support it moving through step 4 because I want to make an informed decision on this issue because everybody wants cleaner, right? But we can't make an informed decision until we get to step 7. To make that commitment until we get to step 7 is absolutely irresponsible. That's writing a blank check. So I do think that we need to be looking at every option possible for clean air, not just CREP. We need to be looking at arresting fugitive dust that's laced with mercury and arsenic from the Great Salt Lake. We need to be looking at what tools we have available to us to make that happen, and we have them. We need to be talking with the county about the tailpipe emissions in our county, because we need to know for this program, what are the fiscal impacts on our residents, and what is the impact in our air quality locally, if any. Those are the 2 pieces of information that we won't get till we get to step 7. I will, and I have always said, I will continue to support this program all the way to step 7 so that we can have the information we need to make a good, informed decision. To imply otherwise is dishonest, and it disregards my 23 years of natural resource and environmental work. This is an issue that matters to me. It matters to everyone. But the cost matters. The impact, if it has any, matters. So I appreciate everybody's comments tonight because I share your skepticism, because that's our job as leaders and as serious, responsible decision makers. Those are the questions we need to ask, and the skepticism's real because the program has created it. The issue is complicated. So I appreciate everybody's opinion, and I look forward to having real information to make real choices. And I hope that we'll continue down every pathway possible to make sure that our air is clean moving forward.
How about you, Councilmember White?
Yeah, I have 2 points to make. One of my first points is, and I have said this from day one, that income brackets shouldn't matter, because what we're trying to do is say that there are people that have lower incomes that don't care about this particular subject, and I totally disagree with that. The second thing I really wanted to talk about is that this isn't just about air quality. This is about climate change, and I'm going to use those words. And we need to start thinking about not about, and I talked about this last week, about not being siloed, because what we're looking at is one rate. You know, is it going to increase $7? Is it going to increase $6.50? The bigger issue is, what's the impact to our wildfires, our flooding, and everything else that goes along with climate change? our global warming is affecting us, and we're siloing ourselves into just this one view of what's it going to do to one person's bill. And in reality, that one person is going to pay for all the other things that are coming along with the issues of burning fossil fuels. And so I think we need to be really careful on siloing ourselves into what's it going to do to just one person's bill, but look at the bigger picture. We already know that we have an increase in temperature in our Earth. We know that it's affecting us with wildfires. We know that it's affecting us with the Great Salt Lake. We know that all of this is affecting us. And so at some point in time, that cost is going to be a burden on all of us at some point in time, either through increased taxes to pay for those wildfires, or what we have to do to keep the Great Salt Lake with water. So we just have to be careful and not to silo ourselves into just thinking that it's one person's bill. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well, I just have a couple comments, and we'll go back to you, Councilmember Heyer. I remember that you still have something to say. I just want to say that I appreciate so much everybody's perspective and your thoughts and ideas around this, because I think that everybody knows that I'm supportive of being in the program and finding out more about it. I feel like sometimes people think that I've already just said I'm 100% behind it, no matter what happens. But I think that the council supported me in being on the agency board and being involved and us staying because we would need to find out more information. And that's really been my goal the whole time, is to understand it better. I think Councilmember White, when this first came up, mentioned that this is a very innovative, it's the first time this has been done. It's a trial to say, like, hey, can communities come together, build this infrastructure, figure out how to be legal entities to be able to take this on and take it to the Utility Commission and work with Rocky Mountain Power, et cetera. So I know, I mean, I am certainly frustrated that it has taken so long to, I think, my whole time on council. I've been working on this project, and I'm definitely not doing it alone, and I've learned a lot in the process as well. And I don't think it's the only answer, as many people have already said. I'm interested in looking at all these other places for what we can do to improve our climate and just everything involved with that, and to decrease people's costs. Because I think something that hasn't been brought up is that our coal infrastructure is going to start costing more and more and more and more throughout all this time too. So we're pretending like, oh, everybody's costs are just going to stay the same no matter what happens. I don't believe that's true, and honestly, I'm not an expert, but from what I've gleaned from the conversations I've had, I think we have to do something rather than just wait around to see what Rocky Mountain Power is going to do by themselves. So I'm optimistic that we are going to have an answer eventually, but I can't tell you right now that I'm going to be supportive when we get all the information. I mean, I would not advocate for us to be involved in a program that's going to hurt our community in any way. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, even though I've been kind of the pro person on this all along. I still need to get some more answers to questions as well, because I don't want those negative impacts to happen, but I'm willing to continue being part of the process. And I think I appreciate everybody's support in helping me to do that, because I know it's very frustrating and it's not a perfect situation. Over to you, Councilmember Heyer.
Okay, I'm sorry to
No, go ahead.
to jump in again, but I did want to mention that I personally am not an environmental terrorist. On my own account.
Who said? Yeah, who said that? Did somebody
well,
call you that?
I think it sounded like I was
okay.
kind of that way, and I'm not. I mean, I've done what I know how to do at my house. All of my bulbs are LEDs. All of we've upped the efficiency on the furnace. I've changed out all my lawn care to battery operated instead of internal combustion.
That's a huge impact.
Yeah,
huge.
I'm reducing the amount of lawn I have. I'm trying to do all the things that I think are pretty reasonable. I own a home that has solar panels that provide.
So you won't even be in the program.
That house certainly won't.
Yeah.
But anyway, and so I do want to know that I do believe that we ought to be good stewards of our resources. I do believe we ought to treat the earth like we're the gardener, you know, take good care of it and do the things that make sense. This program, the thing that's probably one of the largest concerns is we've got one, even though we have a board spot, there is one community that controls the vote. And I'm not sure why there's a board if there's one community that has all the say. That doesn't seem to make sense to me, that's a good idea. And I am just not for writing a blank check. I think you used those words. I've used them before too. This has to make sense, and got a long way before it makes a lot of sense for a government to do this.
Great. Thank you all. So are we ready to consider a motion?
Yeah. Oh. Are we taking public comment?
I think we can after, yeah.
Afterward? Okay. Okay, thanks.
Chair, I'd make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2023-21.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Ritchie, a second by Councilmember Nadolski to adopt proposed resolution 2023-21. This is also a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
No.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie?
Aye.
Chair Chaburka?
Aye, and that passes. Thank you all so much for your support for us moving on. Would you like to make any further statement, Councilmember Blair?
No, I respect.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you. And I
all the
respect
comments,
your
all
opinion.
everything that's been said along the way, and I, like I said, I appreciate it. I understand why we're moving forward to gather more information. To me, it just seems.
I mean,
It just seems
hopefully-
like we're just grasping, just grabbing, and at some point, we have to make a decision, and I just decided tonight was my night. So
I appreciate it.
there we go.
Thank you. And we're going to invite Janine Eller-Smith up one more time to talk with us about the Elected Officials Compensation Commission. And then we'll have public comments after that.
Thank you. So we're here to talk about the Elected Officials Compensation Commission. And before I even start, I just want to say, I know the last time we discussed this, there was some concerns expressed about why we're doing this. And I just want to say, if you decide not to do it, I have no problem with that. I just was doing what I thought you asked me to do.
Well, thank you, Jean. I do appreciate it. And I should mention, I believe this was Councilmember Lopez's kind of initiative and his idea. So I know that he's sad to miss this presentation tonight.
Okay, so this ordinance before you actually establishes a new committee. It's a legislative committee, and the purpose is to advise the council on compensation for elected officials. You may recall that the initial discussion, we talked about a joint committee with the mayor, but ultimately you decided that just the council would make this decision. So it talks about, sets forth the requirements for appointment. Anyone that's appointed must be 21. They must be a resident or have strong ties with the city, have professional experience in finance, HR, corporate management, local government management, or a closely related field. There are 3-year staggered terms and 3-term limit. The council may provide a per diem. That is in most of our committee ordinances, that's available. And vacancies are filled the same way, with a new appointee filling an unexpired portion of the vacated. The duties of this committee will be to review the results of the salary survey conducted by HR, or if they need to go beyond what HR can provide, which would just be an internal, or I should say, an in Utah review, we could hire a consultant for them. We set some standards for them to compare population, location, age of other benchmark communities, compare the workload, the value and impact of the work, any budget constraints. And then they will make recommendations for salaries and stipends for the elected officials, and those will be presented in the first meeting in April. And we set that date so that it's before the budget presentation by the mayor. So the mayor may take it into their recommendations into consideration, although the mayor's not required to take those recommendations into consideration. When the council adopts the budget, you'll also adopt the elected official salaries with those salary schedules. So, and most new salaries, they become effective July 1st of the next fiscal year. So that is it. Any questions?
Any questions or suggestions as it states?
Thank you for doing this.
Well, I feel like I need to kind of speak up for Councilmember Lopez. I hope he doesn't mind, but I think that he suggested this idea because he's always been very uncomfortable with elected officials voting for their own salary increases, which I totally identify with, of course, because it seems like you're paying yourself, so that seems wrong. So he's always, or for the most part that I know of, has voted against all of our salary increases. So he thought this might be a way to make it a little bit more independent of what the council is doing, just to have that advice and have involvement from constituents to be involved in that process. So I think if I have missed something that he stated.
I don't think so. I just to piggyback there, I like the idea of this commission. I think that the more information we have, the better it is, or easier it is to make those decisions. And it seems like the last compensation, why do this if we have a compensation study? And it seems like the prior time we had the compensation study, it wasn't as robust for the elected officials as it was for other positions within the city. And so this, I think, if you have this committee as it's been outlined and detailed, will give some maybe more directed guidance in our community. So,
Yeah. Being I'm on an island over here, I'll just stay on it.
Way over there, yeah.
While I do appreciate your work, Janine, very much. I will say, I want to understand why this was brought up or why we had this suggested. To me, it seems as it's just another step, but it's I don't want to say a meaningless step, because when we involve the community, it's not meaningless, but that information still has to come back to us. We still have to take that information, and at the end of the day, we still have to decide whether or not, which means whether you like it or not, you're voting on your own salary. I believe every one of us has been elected by people that trust us to do those things. We've been elected by people who trust us to make financially responsible decisions, and I understand that these are hard decisions, but I also believe that we are elected to make hard decisions. And yes, it's uncomfortable to talk about our salary or whether or not we deserve or should get an increase. It's still something that falls in with our responsibilities, and it's our job to discuss those decisions. And adding this does not take that away. We still have to discuss that. So like I said, I appreciate the thought behind it. I just don't know if it fully accomplishes that goal of taking that decision out of our hands or having someone else kind of support or give backup why those increases are merited. So it's a hard one. I understand. I truly understand both sides. I really do. But I just want to kind of emphasize that, yeah, I mean, we are elected to do that, to communicate, to be able to discuss maybe not hard topics, but uncomfortable topics for sure. And again, at the end of the day, the mayor doesn't have to accept it either, right? So I mean, those discussions have to be had. They have to be had amongst us individually. They have to be had amongst us collectively, and they have to be had with us in joint with the administration. And I don't think this fixes that discussion. So I just to play the other side.
Yeah.
I think
Going
it's
down the row here, I think.
it's a fair point.
Yeah.
Bart's kind of down there in the contrarian train down the
Mm-hmm.
end tonight, but no, I think it's a fair point. I respect his opinion. The thing I'd hope is that it doesn't avoid the fact that we have to have hard decisions to make, but for me, I'm comfortable making hard decisions. What I hope that this adds is an extra layer of transparency and some level of independence that the community can see and hopefully build around in terms of building trust. And I think that you did a good job capturing Luis's points. I think he'd really appreciate that. And I'm sure he would like to be here to discuss it, but he is in DC and he is meeting with national leaders on issues surrounding immigration and immigrant rights. So he is leading in the community and wishes he could be in two places, I'm sure. So thanks for representing his
I think too,
views.
and just one other point, I think, just from my own perspective, because I agree with Councilmember Lopez as well, is that, for example, we were talking pretty in depth about the mayor's salary this last time and how do we need to increase it to get, not better candidates, but for various reasons, sorry, that we might need to increase the salary. I think those were your words, sorry. But I think that decision would be very hard for me to do just based on my own information. I don't have the qualifications to figure out how high should our mayor's salary. So if we wanted to do a big jump or something, that would be super helpful for me to have an outside source to help with that.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Councilmember.
I just wanted to chime in a little bit too, because I think we are relying on a few people when we should be relying on the consultants that we are hiring to do those studies. So I think there's a piece of that we should be relying on the consultants that probably do it more often than the few people that we're going to discuss 7 or 8 people's salaries, 8 people's salaries. So if we're not hiring the right consultants, then it makes me wonder how they're doing with the rest of our benchmarking. And so I guess part of me looks at it a little bit differently too, that we should, I don't know. I don't think we should have the commission as much as we should probably hiring the right third party to help us along, so.
Councilmember Heyer?
I agree with Bart to a large extent, maybe for a different reason though. I'm averse to just creating another bureaucracy, just to make it bigger. To put 5 people in to decide 8 people's salaries seems a little bit in the light of that in my tenure again, I've never seen any council member trying to figure out how to get their salary raised. I've never seen that. And I don't think we've violated any public trust with respects to our own salary ever, at least in my recollection. And kind of without some of that, I don't know why we would go forward. I don't see, I know the concerns, and I could argue for those concerns. I don't think this solves them. I just don't think it gets there. Other than what you just mentioned, I mean, I think a corporation the size of Ogden City, the CEO probably would typically make more than our mayor does. And that's the only criticism I have. I don't think I have any criticism about my own salary or our salary at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the mayor probably ought to make more money. That's
Except for in the Salt Lake Tribune, he was the highest, or that our mayor was the highest paid
I
mayor
know.
in the
Well,
state.
I think that just goes to saying that maybe mayors don't make enough.
Perhaps.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, and nothing personal against our mayor right now.
Yeah. So anyway, no, that's all.
All right. Well, with that discussion, is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
Chair, I'd make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2023-65, and let's see where it goes.
Second.
A motion by Vice Chair Ritchie, a second by Councilmember Nadolski to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-65. This is also a roll call vote. I'm off for the night on this voting thing.
Councilmember Heyer,
No.
Councilmember Nadolski,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
No.
Councilmember Blair,
No.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye. And so that's a tie. So what happens in that case?
It fails.
It fails, but it can
fails.
be
You
brought
need
back
four-
up.
You need 4 affirmative
Mhm.
votes, so if somebody wants to bring it back up, I suppose we can do that.
So that someone can bring it back up in a different meeting. Put back on the agenda.
I can't
Okay.
remember what the. Or isn't it, that's just it, anybody
Yeah.
can do it.
Doesn't have to be from the one
Well,
side or
when
the
it's a
other.
tie, there's no, it's even, right? So either side
Okay,
can bring
okay.
it up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thanks again so much for your work on that, Janine. Okay, well, I know many of you have been waiting all night for public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic. And if you'd like to step up to the podium, you may state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And if you're online, if you're on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand. Hey, I thought you weren't feeling very well. You snuck
I
in.
decided to come. Anyhow, you guys already know what I'm going to talk about, Union Station.
Say your name first, even though we know
Teresa
you.
Holmes. I'm never giving up. Let's see here. Okay, Leon Jones sent us a letter. We posted part of it on our Union Station, Save Union Station Facebook page, But it just says the current city administration incorporated the building of museums into the Department of Economic Development under Brandon Cooper. They then declared that the city would take over the management of running of the museums under the direction of Damien Burnham. The museums were put off limits to the members of the committee that had been operating them for years. They essentially told Union Station Foundation that the city was running the museums and that we were not welcome to have anything to do with them. Any future role of the foundation would be solely to raise money for the city. The museum committees were disbanded and the years of expertise of the volunteers was lost, including me. Where am I at on this? This included experts on firearms for the Browning Museum, retired railroad workers, and the train museums and mechanics that had kept the cars running. One of the biggest losses to the entire city of Ogden was our expert and knowledgeable librarian archivist, Lee Winton. The people in charge were basically administrators from the Economic Development Department with no actual museum experience. The only museum persons had a rather mistaken idea that the role of the museums was to protect and store the artifacts with no obligation to make them accessible, nor to display and interpret them in a meaningful way. Many of the displays have been removed and almost empty spaces left. Ogden City Development desires to turn the strip west of Wall Avenue from 23rd to 27th Streets into commercial partly transportation development. The project was hastily put together with no accommodation for the existing citizens of Ogden. There is no firm accommodation of the museums or valuable artifacts that cover the history of the railroad. When asked about the location, size, and accessibility, and indeed who would ultimately operate it, the city said that is up to the will of the developer. No commitment allowed for a developer that is totally unequipped to understand a museum. A tentative,
Thank you so
unannounced
much,
development
Teresa. Your
has
time's
been
up.
chosen by the city and UTA, and essentially,
Teresa.
is that 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
Do you
about
want to
that.
hear the rest of it?
Maybe we can hear it the next time.
Oh.
Or you can send it. I
Well,
think I've
there's
read it.
a lot more to this, you know, but we're all
I've read
pretty
it, yeah.
upset that all of our museum expertise was lost because Damon Burnham and Brandon Cooper, they didn't give a crap about what we knew or anything.
you,
It was just
Teresa.
pushing it on us, you know.
Thank you.
And I had 21 years
We've
there.
got some other people that would like to
I'm
make
kind of
comment too.
upset still.
Thank you.
We're going to save our museums.
Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Chaburka and Vice Chair Ritchie, and it is Ritchie, gosh, and City Council. I'm here this evening to publicly thank City Council and Angela specifically she's my district representative, Code Services Officer Tremea and Adam, Mara Brown, Ogden City staff, and all the volunteers from my hometown. This is very emotional for me, who worked tirelessly to clear out the hoard around the exterior of our neighbor, Nan Phillips' home. It was a huge undertaking. It took 75 volunteers, several hours, to get most of the cleanup done. These efforts show the incredible power of our community when we work together for a common goal. For the past 10 years, we've had issues with our neighbor's home exterior, being packed with debris, trash, and junk, non-permitted structures that were dangerous. Bricks from deteriorating chimney fell and broke one of our windows. We tried to solve it with little success until I reached out to Angela. She set up a meeting with Code Services, Weaver Morgan Health, Ogden Can, my husband Rob, and me. This community gathering started a process of making things better and safer. The change we witnessed was huge relief for us because over this past year, Rob and I considered moving. Looking at this hoard for 10 years has taken a toll on our mental and emotional well-being. This cleanup has helped improve our neighborhood, lifted our spirits, and given us hope that things can and will continue to improve. We're very grateful for the partnership Ogden City has made with my hometown. Both organizations work tirelessly, and we are thankful. My hometown has committed to come back late next spring to paint the exterior of the home as it is still in rough shape. These efforts will continue to improve our neighborhood, and these partnerships will continue to make our community better. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I'm Karen Warner. Oh, sorry, Karen, you didn't say your name.
Can I say it?
So sorry. I just assumed that you did because I.
Karen Warner.
You still have 45 seconds.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks. Just because I know you. Well, and I just have to say that's all Chris Tremay and my hometown because all I did was talk to you. So.
Good evening. I'm Steve Jones, Ogden resident. Just like to mention that again, Union Station discussion. I sat in on the work session and heard the presentations by Kristen McBride of the plans for the 100-year anniversary celebration, and I'd like to compliment her. They are some great plans. The one thing that I would ask that maybe city administration and the council get involved with is lobbying with Union Pacific to bring in a heritage train for that special celebration. It just wouldn't be the same without it. So a little bit of extra effort, a little bit of extra lobbying, I think could make a huge difference. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. It's great to be here. My name's Dave Timmerman, Ogden resident. I can spell it if you'd like, but take too long. Couple of things that came to my mind tonight. Of course, I'm here because of the CREA, House Bill 411, whatever you want to call it, okay? And it has been a long haul, as everybody's pointed out. About, I would say 6 months ago, I watched a special on PBS about the Titanic, okay? And this I'm directing to Mr. Heyer specifically. Not because you're on the Titanic, but we all are. We all are.
Yeah, I'm not that old.
Me neither. But the point is they were trying to identify these lights that were reported by many of the passengers on the Titanic at the time, which gave those people false hope. They saw lights to the horizon. They thought, oh, there's a ship coming to rescue us. We're going to be okay. This is after, people were on the deck and panic was setting in. So there was a lull and everybody thought, oh, everything's going to be all right. We're going to be rescued. Well, the problem was, of course, that ship never arrived. The communications with ships then were very limited to the wireless that they had available at the time. Anyway, long story short, that's my analogy to where we are with regard to the Clean Renewable Energy Program. And the reason I say that is because today the White House released additional data which shows, and you can deny this if you want, but it shows that by the year 2030, which is the deadline of the implementation of our program that we're talking about in Utah, by then, if we don't do something very powerful as a country and a worldwide group, everybody in the world is affected by what's going on. It is not, there's no lights on the horizon for us. It's us. It's our survival. And we're all on this earth together. And so that's why it's important to take some measure, any measure, to correct the problem. And that's why people are behind this, because fossil fuels are killing us. Temperatures continue to rise. Now the projection is 2030 if we can't reduce it by 40 to 45%. And honestly, I feel at this point, I don't know what we can do. But we do have to do something. And so I would ask everybody to rethink this, investigate it even more personally, if you have the time, because this warming issue is real and it's existential. So please support this. I'm glad that we're going to get the money. That is important. We need to know what it's going to cost, but we absolutely have to do something. So thank everybody for your service. We differ on some ideas, but this one we can't differ on. Thanks.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Heath online after you.
Kia ora, my name is Tianu Tonga, and I am an ordinary citizen. A week and a half ago, I moderated a debate with city council members and mayoral candidates. And tonight, I was reminded of two questions that I asked to some or all of the candidates. And I wanted to bring them up because of some concerns that I have. My first question to all of my candidates was, what is the difference between telling a story and telling a lie? How do you tell the difference? How will your constituents know that you are telling the truth? The second question was, I am a U.S. Constitution girl. And in the preamble, one of the provisions says that talks about securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And I've been battling with the difference between secure and security. And as I've been doing my homework around the issue or the topic of the CREA or CRE program, what I have found is that what I have been told and what I have found are not congruent. And so I came here tonight because I wanted to know what the truth was. So I have been told that there is an opt-out option, true, but what I found in writing that what has not been told is that you have to opt out before the third billing cycle, and then after that there is a penalty. I agree with the gentleman about not giving the residents the option to choose in or not. I think choice and personal, individual choice is essential to liberty, is essential to upholding the mana of our Constitution. The biggest red flag for me was I was told about a survey done by Weber State that said that this person said that 70% of all residents in Ogden were in favor of the CRE program, were in favor of paying more than 0% in their monthly bill. But as I looked at the survey, the sampling pool was actually 10,000 of our residents, which then dwindled down to like 669 individuals. And 70% of 669 individuals were in favor of paying more than 0%. And that was alarming to me because the information isn't fluid, isn't equating what I'm being told. And so I just wanted to come and just, like, what is the difference between secure and security, and how do I know that you're telling the truth and not telling a lie? Thank you.
Thank you. We can go online to Heath Sato.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I would like to give credit to everyone that's been willing to speak up on this issue. It can be a really hot topic, no pun intended. So, kudos to everyone for speaking their mind on this. I have to push back a little on the idea that we shouldn't have our government get between the people and their electric company. I mean, unless you are in a place where you can, purchase solar for your own home that you own, we don't have really any say in how we get our electricity. So it's not reducing our choice by allowing us to have the option to choose to be in or out of this program. Not being in this program, we definitely don't have any choice. Again, unless we're in the privileged position of being able to buy solar panels for our own home. I also want to push back a little while I applaud Councilmember Nadolski's initiative that he's shown outside of council to work out plans that would benefit in directly cleaning our air much more quickly. This does go far beyond just our immediate air. It's our environment, and I think we have to think about that it's not just about ourselves, and as Council Member White said, it's not just about the individual. So I just want you guys to think about all of those things, and thanks.
Thank you. Come on up.
There has been a lot of discussion tonight. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident, and I appreciate the fact that everybody is weighing in with their perspectives and we're all treating each other civilly, because I know that this can be a very triggering topic for a lot of folks. I have a couple of problems with some of the things that were said. I'm really excited that we're going to stay until step 7. I think that's prudent, and I agree with the council members that before we're making a decision, that we need to know what it costs. I get that. I do take a little umbrage at the fact that the attitude seems to be that just if you're at a lower socioeconomic level, if you're making less than $60,000 a year, you can't handle opting out of something, that you're not going to be paying attention to the outreach that's happening and all of the stacked layers of how we're going to reach people. I found that a little offensive, because I do a lot of work with some people that are struggling to get by. And they're both parents working, and they've got a couple of kids, and they have to go to the food bank, and they're living in not the greatest conditions because it's what they can afford, but they're holding it together and they're doing a great job. And so that didn't sit very well with me. And the thing with opting in, we opt in for a lot of things as residents, right? We pull over when an ambulance goes by. We have laws that we follow. We're opted into taxes, whether we like it or not, unless you're a particular part of another group. But I completely concur with Councilman Nadolski that we all want clean air. And so I'm grateful that we're going to stay until 7, but I'm also going to ask you to practice a little Arbinger Institute stuff and keep an open mindset, and to look for what we can do. I so appreciate Councilman Nadolski's actual plans to control particulate and poison in the air with water, and I think it's very innovative, but I think we need to go beyond that. I haven't heard a single thing come out of the administration nor discussed on this dais about the October 27th White House brief, which releases a ton of money for housing. HUD, 10 billion with a B. DOT, 35 billion with a B. And the DOE has Energy Star loan programs that are going to be used in capital stacks over $10 billion available, and grants to be given, free money, not loans, grants. So Energy Star rating, I mean, if you're not going to go in, I think before you get to that point, we should be talking about what we can do right now, right here. And emissions leakage from houses is a big thing. An Energy Star program is not that expensive and can be applied to all new builds. And why aren't we talking about all this money and why we're not using it? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go online to Linda's iPhone.
Hi, this is Linda Sanchez. I wanted to also talk about the energy topic. I too do not believe the government has any way, should not be in between anything and a service for a citizen. I feel like we should be able to opt in or opt out of whatever we choose, and that we shouldn't have to be told what to do or what not to do. I remember when this whole situation started coming apart, well, when I first learned about global warming and how we're all killing our planet, I had a gas car. Okay, well, something happened to the gas car and I chose not to fix it. So then I would walk back and forth 5 miles to work, 5 miles back, in the dark, because I'd have to leave at 4 to make it there. And while I lost a lot of weight and everything like that, and of course I felt better because I was getting exercise that I didn't always feel like I had time for. I was pushed to. It also didn't tell me the cost that it would take. So then, unfortunately, I got plantar fasciitis, and the walk became more and more painful, which nobody had to tell me to do anything, but, you know, I got an electric car. But the bad thing about an electric car, especially when I got it, because it wasn't when it goes like with a Tesla that you can go from here to there and only charge for 20 minutes and you're good for another 500 miles. No, it doesn't get me to Salt Lake. I just think we need to be careful about what the cost is, because I have been charging, and I got, the other day when I went to go charge, the company that I got it from said I couldn't charge there anymore. So I feel like we need to be careful about that. I feel like sometimes I feel like I want to choose where my taxes are spent, because sometimes I just don't know. I feel like the things that I use and everybody else has used is not the same thing. And what I would like to ask is, would you guys be okay to do an audit to save money where maybe the city is using waste, fraud, or abuse, and maybe save some taxpayers' money that way? I yield back.
Thanks, Linda.
I'm Lynn Carroll. I'm here to say thank you to the council for voting to continue to find out how the community renewable energy program is really going to work. And I totally understand a lot of the concerns about why does it have to be this way, and I think a lot of it has to do with the provisions that were put in the original HB 411 that required certain things that were probably things that Rocky Mountain Power wanted in the HB 411. I have no proof of that, of course. Anyway, thank you guys for voting as you did.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Bramwell, and I'm here to talk about my property on Monroe. Surprise, surprise. I feel like I should tell you guys a little bit of the history of what has happened with this property since I've owned it, since you might think I'm kind of just a crazy person coming in here and ranting and raving about it every day. So I purchased this property in 1997. Sometime around the end of the year 2000, maybe 2001, I got a letter in the mail from the mayor. I had no idea who the mayor was. Wants to talk to me about my property on Monroe. So I set up a meeting with the mayor. I think it was Godfrey. I don't even know. I don't remember. And I go up to his office and he said, "Hi, we want to buy your property." And I said, "Okay." So I was living in the home at the time. I was running a retail business in the store, and there was a beauty salon on the other side that had been there for decades, probably 4 decades, the same lady running a beauty salon. And I said, "Okay, it's not for sale, but why do you want it, and why do you think I should sell it to you?" And so he showed me 8-foot renderings of 4-story apartments with commercial on the main level that were all going to be owned by a real estate broker who owned the rest of the block. So he owned everything else except for my property and Topper Bakery. And I said, "Okay, if you want this, I can go along with that. I'm a real estate agent. I know what my property's worth. And I want more than that because I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to give up my business that I'm running. This lady's going to have to move that's been here for 40 years. So I said, "Okay, I want $250 for it." He said, "All right, do you mind if we have it appraised?" I said, "You can do whatever you want, but the price is $250. So they had it appraised. It paid $3,500 for an appraisal. It appraised for $200,000. They sent me a copy of the appraisal. Then I never heard from them again. Never heard from the mayor, never heard from the broker, never heard from anybody. So then I hear about the gondola that's supposed to come in on 25th and Monroe. Then I hear they're going to move it to 26th and Monroe. And I hear about the trolley that's going to go up 25th Street. And I'm like, well, might as well keep it. Sounds like a good investment. Then I hear about the Ogden on board plan that has my property with 5-story apartments on it. Has nothing to do with what I own. It's got 5-story apartments on it. You took that to the federal government to get your money to build this bus that you have now. I've never been involved in any of this. What I want is a seat at the table.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
You can start running the PowerPoint. Any other comments?
Laura Lewis. I'm going to side with you tonight, Councilman Heyer. I think this community renewable energy, it's just poorly defined. I mean, to me, I'm listening to all the steps we're going through. We're spending money, costs are doubling. There's really no hard date. And it almost sounds like, it reminds me of going to Las Vegas and you keep putting money in that slot machine and hoping you're going to have something really nice come at the end of it. And so we're going a hope and a prayer, hoping that we're going to get what they want. And I do not think that opt-out is fair, because I know when you start arguing with a business like Rocky Mountain Power and you say, "No, I opted out of that," you're going to lose when it comes down to who's going to win, whether I signed up or not. And I think at the very least, that should go to an opt-in program. But there's a lot of problems with this program.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Any comments? Oh, does anybody want to respond to any of those? The only thing I was going to point out is that survey that you were talking about, Weber State Community Research Extension, they did that and they did a sample of the population based on their analytics, et cetera. So that's why it got whittled down to the smaller amount. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that that's what the science behind that was. Any other comments about that stuff? Okay, anything from the administration?
Yes, Chair Chaburka, just a few comments. I did want to remind the community that there will be a community engagement workshop at Union Station tomorrow in the Browning Theater at 6:30 to 8. And this is for the purpose of getting feedback on some concept plans for the Union Station neighborhood development. So I think that I wanted to give notice about that. And then also for Union Station, and Krista McBride gave a great presentation at the work session, but another reminder that on the 22nd, since you won't be meeting on the 21st, reminder that on November 22nd, there will be a kickoff to the 100-year celebration. And the ribbon cutting is at noon, and then the public is invited, to that, as well as a community celebration from noon to 6 that day. And then finally, I wanted to thank Karen Warner for her comments and appreciation for the My Hometown project. Chris Tremea from the Ogden City Business or Building Services Manager is here today, and he is responsible for a lot of the administrative coordination on that and puts in himself a tremendous amount of work as well as his team. And so I wanted to recognize Chris personally tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Chris. Amazing. Got right to work on that project. And it's so wonderful to have all those volunteers to be able to help with that too. Any other comments from council members? And Councilmember White, I should make sure to give you an opportunity if you'd like.
I've done a lot of piggybacking, so I'm going to piggyback one more time. We have the opportunity as council members to go to the police and fire banquet, and a lot of times we talk about being able to work with heroes and see these superheroes that work for Ogden City. And I haven't had a lot of interaction with Chris, but the 2 times I've had the opportunity to work with Chris. One was through a similar instance with Karen. Just a problem that seemed overwhelming to a resident, and I called Chris, and he literally stepped into a phone booth, came out as a superhero, and was like, I've got it, and took care of it with not even worried about it, like, hey, we've got teams in place, we've got this and this and this, and we'll get it done. And I know to residents and to people that are looking at the problem so close, it's overwhelming, and it seems like there's never going to be an end. And I appreciate Chris's knowledge of my hometown and the knowledge of what can be done. I appreciate his willingness to rally his team and rally other community members to engage in the My Hometown initiative, because it truly does leave a positive impact, not only on those people that are staring at a problem and don't know how it's ever going to be resolved, but throughout the entire community. So I agree with what Mara said, and I appreciate I appreciate Chris and the superhero things that he does throughout our community, but there's truly so many superheroes peppered throughout our community and peppered throughout this building that work for Ogden City, and I appreciate all of them. I think we could go every Tuesday night and recognize somebody different, because everybody here truly wants to do all they can to make a positive impact in our community. So I appreciate that someone was willing, or someone came tonight and highlighted Chris and his efforts, and I appreciate, we've talked about it earlier, as parts of a team. Being on a team means we all work together towards a common goal, but it also means that you do your part so that when you're called upon, when your number is called, that you're ready and you're ready to go in and do what you've been asked to do. And there are so many within this building that truly do that. And so I applaud Chris's efforts tonight, but he's truly one of many throughout Ogden City. So thank you to everybody.
Nice. And I saw Councilmember White come on camera.
Yeah, I was just waving.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. It's hard to remember to include you. Do anybody else have comments?
I do. I don't want to piggyback. I want to pile on. Chris's face is turning red, but everything you just said is absolutely right. We have people, not just in the city building in this community, that care deeply. The work, the examples that we've shown, the leadership from our chair, the leadership from our community and neighbors, to our city staff. Those are the things that happen when we collaborate and we work together. The example of Yaya Foods that we heard about in the work session that we're going to hear about formally in here, that was an example of collaboration between CED and our public works professionals. Those were people that said, I see a problem, I can solve it. Expertise, passion, enthusiasm, a spirit of service and collaboration, partnership between people, making an impact. Chris didn't come here tonight to be thanked. That's why his face is turning red.
He's like, why am I sitting
But
over
that's
here?
all we need to do. It's work together to solve problems, give credit where credit's due. And I guarantee you, Chris is going to do more of that because I've seen him work in the chains at the Jets games. That's a new football program for kids, giving kids an opportunity to get an education and continue to play sports so that they can have opportunities in life. Chris volunteers and does that every weekend and during the week. He doesn't do it for pay, he does it for impact. So thank you, Chris, and thank you to all the employees and people in the community and my peers at the dais that do the same.
Thank you. So, I'm sure I don't know if you
I just
have to look at
here
everybody.
on all that. It's great. Yeah, I agree 100%. There have been times where I've had an issue brought up and I've reached out to either Justin Anderson or Mara or somebody else, and just immediately the troops are rallied, and it's been one of the real pleasures of serving on the council is to see behind the scenes what work gets done, and yeah, the heroes that put on the capes. So anyway.
Nice, I like it. Well, the only other thing I was going to say, I agree with everything everybody said, but this year, well, annually there is a Thanksgiving family meal at the Marshall Waite Center, but we all know that that's under construction right now. So that's actually going to be at the Union Station on this Saturday, November 18th from 11 to 1. It's a free family dinner. They also have a lot of resources available. You can get your flu shot or your COVID-19 vaccine at no cost. There's going to be free haircuts to the first 40 people who pre-register. So if you call the number 801-629-8346, you can reserve a spot for any of those vaccines, the flu shot or haircut, and yeah, it's going to be a really great event. And you can also call that number to volunteer if you'd like to volunteer yourself or have a group that would like to do that. So that'll be at the Union Station this year.
This Saturday at Union Station, there's free family photo event being put on by ordinary citizens, much like Tayanu. A couple guys that see need in their immediate community. They have the ability to take photos. They grew up without having pictures of their own families, and they don't want people to grow up and not have the same. So between the hours of 1 and 5 p.m., you can show up to the Union Station, bring your family, and snap pictures and memories.
Perfect. We can have lunch, get
Exactly.
your haircut,
Yep.
get your photo done.
Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, get your cut.
Great. Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Nadolski, second by Councilmember Heyer to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and thanks everyone for coming tonight.